Turn with me to Psalm 100. I forgot to take the laptop home with me again, so the verses are not going to be on the screen. I'll try to remember to slow down for you to turn to them. We used to sing this psalm once upon a time back in the day. A psalm of praise. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations. Folks, we need to bring back worship. We talk about going to Sunday morning worship. And we come and we sing songs, and I appreciate the songs. But do we really take the time to worship God? See, there's a difference between praise and worship. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. But we need to, in our daily lives, dedicate time to worship God. Too many of us want to worship ourselves. I've always liked that verse, that it is he that hath made us and not we ourselves. Too many of us want to run around boast, I'm a self-made man. And I say, obviously. That's what's wrong with you. You made yourself. You have no idea the bondages in your life that can break, the victory that you can have. I'm not talking about money. Y'all know this ain't one of those churches. Okay? This is not a Best Life Now church. Okay? This is a God's will above all else church. This is an eternal above the natural church. Folks, there is a spiritual realm out there. There are, the Bible tells us, principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places that's out to get you. And if you don't learn how to worship God and how to enter into his presence, you will live a defeated life spiritually. We love to talk about worshiping God and praising God, and many people think that those two terms are interchangeable, but they're not. You can praise someone, you speak well of them, and it usually involves their accomplishments or something about them that we admire. So praise involves admiration, and there's nothing wrong with praising God. There's nothing wrong with admiring the things he has done. You know, we might say nice things about an athlete or an actor. We recognize their abilities. We praise them about what they have done. Now, to start with, we need to start learning to be thankful for what God has done. Too many of us take it for granted. God loves you. He sent his son to die for you, to reconcile you so that when we leave this nasty now and now, we step into life with him for eternity as kings and priests to rule together with him. That's a message for another day. But to worship shows a reverence to that person. I might admire your athletic ability. Well, maybe not in this church. No, just kidding. No, I might admire your athletic ability, but I'm not going to worship you. That's where it stops. The idea of worship involves surrender and an acknowledgement of servanthood. In the Old Testament, the most common word used for worship carries with it the idea of bowing down before royalty. When we come to worship God, we should keep in mind we are bowing down before the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Royalty. We sing about him on his throne, but do we ever stop to think about what we're singing? How often do we sing songs and not even think about the words we're saying? You want to overcome the problems in your life? Draw near to God, and one of two things will happen. Either he'll dissolve that problem for you, or he'll let you know that he'll take care of it when the time comes, and he'll give you peace about it for right now. When you get saved, you do not automatically become perfect. I'm telling you right now. There are people running around in the three-piece suits on Sunday morning with the hair cut short, no tattoos, no piercings, doing the do's and the don'ts, who ain't going to make it. And there are people who struggle with addictions and problems and frustrations and worries and anxieties, who feel like they're the bottom rung of the ladder and everybody steps on them on the way up. They're going to be the first in line. And yet we make a habit of judging people and condemning them and getting our eyes on men. That wasn't even in my notes, y'all. That was free of charge. When we should have our eyes on God. And folks, God will give you peace. When we sing about him, we need to stop and think about what we're singing. This psalm tells us to serve him with gladness. Oh boy, that's going to cause some problems right there. Oh, I got to go read my Bible, Oh, I got to go do this. I got to go do that. Well, I know it's Sunday. I get up early every day of the week. Why can't I sleep in on Sunday? So let me get this straight. You get up early every day of the week because that's what's important to you. See, we make time for the things that are important to us. Serve him. That's the same word used to describe the children of Israel going to Egypt and serving as slaves. When God told Abraham in Genesis 15, 13 and 14, if you want these scriptures, write them. I'll give you the list later if you want it. I'm not good about remembering to slow down for y'all to turn there. I'll try. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them. And they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they serve I will judge, and afterward they will come out with great substance. Egyptians had ultimate authority over the Israelites. If you don't believe me, go and look at the part where they decided to kill all the male children. You don't see the Israelites rebelling against it. They snuck some, but you don't see an open rebellion against it. That attitude should be the same way we have in our hearts when it comes to our relationship with God. We come to him. He is our king. He has ultimate authority over our lives, and we serve him. I don't care if you want to or not. You're going to have good days, bad days. Folks, the Bible often compares our relationship to God like a marriage. There are days you don't want to be married. Hello? There are days you just don't want to be married. There are days you're just like, oh, Lord, they are on my nerves today. But you know you love them. And you know they love you. In spite of the days, there's days they don't want to be married to you either. So, there are days you're not going to want to get up and do what you know you need to do for God. But you get up and you do it because you love Him. Because, God, I want to do this for you. I want to serve you with all of my heart. And when I stand before you on Judgment Day, I want you to look at me and say, well done. You did a good job. When we serve Him, we recognize His authority over us, not because of what He's done, but because of who He is. Worship involves the idea of lifting them up over you like they're on a pedestal and acknowledging that they're better than you are. And that's where we get the term idolize. Hello? But folks, that's just the starting point of worship. Before you can even begin to worship God, first you have to acknowledge He deserves it. And you don't. John 4:21-24. This is Jesus and the woman at the well. Now I want to stop here for a minute because I was talking to someone this week, and God has infinite wisdom. You know, Jesus said, I must needs go through Samaria. And, you know, Jesus said multiple times in the book of John, I do exactly what the Father tells me to do and say, and I go where He tells me to go and all this and that. God knew exactly what time Jesus needed to arrive at that well. God knew exactly He needed to send those disciples away to go get food so Jesus could have a conversation with that woman at the well. Think about this. You want to get your mind blown? When they threw Jonah overboard, God didn't just hope there was going to be a fish nearby big enough to swallow him. I believe God, before ordained, I'm going to take care of this fish. I'm going to let it eat enough where it's going to get big enough when they throw that prophet overboard, and I'm going to have it at the right place at the right time. God had to have planned all of that. And then yet we think God doesn't know our life enough to know what's going on. Think about how big that fish had to grow to swallow him. God planned it. I was talking to someone about that this week. So God planned this meeting between Jesus and this woman at the well. Verse 21, Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor out of Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship Him. God is a spirit, and they that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. True worship is not based on a place. See, all too often, we get the idea, well, I can only do this. I can only go down to the altar and give my life to God if I'm at church. The altar's in your heart. I can only go pray when I'm at church. No. I can only pray when I'm in my prayer closet. No. You can worship God wherever you are. See, our God is omnipresent. He's everywhere. Back then, they didn't believe that. Back in this time, it was common to believe that gods were local. They were geographically influenced. You find proof of this in two things. One, the fact that, whoa, it just went way past my notes. One, in the fact that when they would get conquered, very often they would say, well, their gods must be stronger than our gods. We're going to worship their gods. Second thing is Balaam. When Balak sent and asked Balaam to come curse the children of Israel, we're going to cover several verses here in Numbers. Just write them down. In chapter 22 and chapter 23. Chapter 2, we're reading verse 41. And it came to pass on the morrow that Balak took Balaam and brought him up into the high places of Baal, that he might see the utmost part of the people. 23 verse 1. And Balaam said to Balak, build me here 7 altars, and prepare me here 7 oxen and 7 rams. Balak did as Balaam had spoken, and Balak and Balaam offered on every altar a bullock and a ram. It didn't work. So drop down to verse 13 and 14. Balak said, come, I pray thee, with me unto another place, from whence thou mayest see them. Thou shalt see the utmost part of them, and shalt not see them all, and cursed me them from there, or from thence. He brought him to a field of Zophim, the top of Pisgah, and built 7 altars, and offered a bullock and a ram on each altar. Well, that didn't work, so we're going to try somewhere else. Verse 27 to 30. And Balak said to Balaam, come, I pray thee, I will bring thee to another place. Peradventure it will please God. Thou mayest curse me them from thence. And Balak brought Balaam unto the top of Peor, that looketh toward Jeshimon. And Balaam said unto Balak, build me here 7 altars, and prepare me 7 bullocks and 7 rams. And Balak did as Balaam had said, and offered a bullock and a ram on each altar. Okay, why is it sometimes we think our problems are geographical? Well, if I can only get to another town. If I can, this is my problem right here. If I can only get to this, if I can only, okay, stop. God told Balaam he couldn't curse them. Balaam knew. But Balaam was trying to serve God like a pagan does. Well, we're going to see if it works over here. Well, we're going to see if it works over here. Maybe if I make enough offerings, I can change God's mind. How many of us come to God with the same thing? God, if I can do this, then maybe it'll change your mind. God's told you no, but you don't listen. Being able to worship God isn't dependent upon your physical locality, but your spiritual one. Where is your heart? True worshipers must worship Him in spirit and in truth. We are comprised of 3 parts. We've covered this multiple times. We're going to go through it again. All right. A body, a soul, and a spirit. Your body is your awareness of your surroundings. It's how you take in information. Your soul is your awareness of yourself. That includes your intellect and your will and your emotions. Your spirit is your awareness of God Himself. If you are going to worship God, you must start with your awareness of who He is. To worship Him in truth, our worship must be sincere and honest. You think you're going to fool God? Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to put forth a good effort. Your heart ain't in it. God knows. You ain't going to fool Him. You come to Him and you honestly humble yourself before Him. If you are not willing to humble yourself before God, you cannot worship Him. Second thing in that is truth. Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. You are not able to enter into the presence of the Father except through Jesus Christ. I don't care how goody-goody two-shoes you think you are. Don't care if you don't have any tattoos or piercings or didn't drink any Coca-Colas or watch any television or whatever it is that they're doing nowadays. That don't earn you diddly squat. Why is it that, if there was a perfect law to follow, wouldn't it have been the law of Moses that was given directly to man by God? If that would have made us righteous? Okay, then why is it that we think we know better than God when he gave Moses the law? Oh, I'm going to have to go and do this and do this and do this to make myself acceptable to God. Wait a minute. You know better than the law of Moses? But even that could not bring you justification. God is seeking in this hour a people who will choose to submit to his lordship and adopt the role of a servant. Contrary to what that commercial tells you, Jesus didn't wash everybody's feet. He washed the feet of his disciples, and he did it as an example. As I, your leader, am humbling myself to serve you, now you are to humble yourselves and serve each other. The greatest among you will be your servant, he says. The point he's trying to make is we must adopt the heart of a servant, not of somebody coming in and demanding things of God. Like we have some little magical genie. We rub our Bible, quote a few scriptures, and God has to pop out and do it. Hello? If I can envision it and I can claim it, I'm gonna manifest it and bring it. No, that's not scriptural, folks. That's borderline witchcraft. You want to know what I think? But you got to humble yourself, or you're not going to enter into God's presence. James, chapter 4, verses 6 through 7, and then drop down to verse 10. But he giveth more grace. Wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Oh, hold on there. We all think we have the right to go around rebuking the devil here and rebuking the devil there, but hold on, are you submitted to God? If you don't submit to God, then you don't have authority over that devil. Like the 7 sons of Sceva. Jesus I know and Paul I know, but who are you? If you don't know that one, look it up. James 4 and 10. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. 1 Peter 5 and 5. Likewise, ye younger, submit unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility. For God resisteth the proud, and giveth grace to the humble. 1 Timothy 3 and 6 talks about the office of a bishop, a position of authority of a church. Doesn't need to be a novice, lest being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil. I don't care if you've gone to church for 30 years. If you haven't totally surrendered to the Lord, you're a novice. You're going to run around in rebellion and then walk in this door and expect me to jump up. Oh, you decided to serve God. Come on and preach for us. No, it don't work that way. You can't walk around in an unsubmitted life and think God's going to instantaneously turn you into a super preacher. The condemnation of the devil has 2 things there. One, it gives the devil a chance to condemn you and to accuse you. Your pride does. The second thing is you're going to get the same judgment as the devil. He was lifted up for his pride and his rebellion against God. He was judged for it. Isaiah 14, 12 through 14. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mountain of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Wasn't that the same temptation he gave Eve? You will be as gods. And then yet we all run around thinking we're little gods. That's the temptation in the church world today. You can be a little God. You can speak it into existence. You do not have creative power in your voice. Only God does. Being haughty and proud is a huge temptation, and one that too many preachers fall into in today's society. It's an ever-present danger in all of our lives. When God begins to use you, it's easy to exalt yourself and to forget, wait a minute, this ain't me. That's why Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 10, and says, lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice that it might depart from me. Wait a minute. Mr. Paul, the apostle, the man that the snake bit and he didn't die, had something in his flesh and he asked God, Lord, deliver me from this 3 times, and God told him no. Don't sit there and tell me. I think if anybody had faith, that man had faith. If you ain't healed, you ain't got the faith. Malarkey. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Remember we talked last week about how God likes to take the stupid blockheads of the world, the foolish things of the world, and use them to confound the wise? Because he wants everybody to know it's his glory, not yours. That's what he's telling you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. When you look at yourself and you see something that you think is worthless, God can use you then. Because then people will know it was God's hand in your life and not you yourself. You look at your life and say, oh, how could God ever choose to use me? I've got too many problems in my life. Welcome to the kingdom. It's those who come and tell God what a good deal he got are the ones he'll never use. Well, God, you're getting such a good person to me. There's not that much really in my life you need to fix, you know. I don't do this, and I never did that. And is that your testimony? Or do you come and you beat on your chest like the sinner and you say, God, I can't even look up at you. I'm unworthy. Have mercy on me, a sinner. That's the one who got up justified and not the other one. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ rest upon me. Therefore, I will take pleasure in infirmities, reproaches, and necessities, and persecutions, and distresses for Christ's sake. For when I'm weak, then I'm strong. When you recognize you're weak, you tap into his strength and not your own. But see, if you're not his servant and you're not submitted to his authority, it ain't going to work. God knows your weaknesses. God will point them out to you, and he'll sometimes pull his protection away from you so you fall flat on your face and realize I wasn't doing that on my own. This keeps you from being proud and from thinking even for a moment that you deserve it. Because you're something special. Pride will stop you from apologizing. It'll stop you from doing work that you think is beneath you. It'll make you judge and criticize others. But you got to humble yourself before you can serve and worship God. I'm going to throw a few scriptures out, write them down, go back and read them later. Proverbs 11:2, when pride cometh, then cometh shame. but with the lowly is wisdom. Everybody misquotes this next one. It's Proverbs 16, 18, and 19. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. Proverbs 16 and 5. I love this one. Because everybody loves to quote scriptures and talk about, oh, well, long hair is an abomination, and this is an abomination, that's an abomination. But I never hear them quote this one. Everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Proverbs 16:5. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. That though hand join in hand means from generation to generation, or though men form a league together. Your pride ain't going to save you. What God is wanting right now is servants. Matthew 23:11. But the greatest among you shall be your servant. Verse 12. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased. He that shall humble himself shall be exalted. John 15:18-21. If the world hate you, know that it hated me before it hated you. If you are the world would love his own. But because you're not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Remember the word I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will persecute you. If they've kept my sayings, they're going to keep yours. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. I have the passage down here. I'm not going to read it to you for sake of time today. But we all know the story of the prodigal son in Luke 15. First thing he does is go to the father and say, Father, give me mine. Give me what's coming to me. Now, that's a way of looking at him and saying, I wish you were dead. I'd rather have your money than live here with you. So he gave me his shares of inheritance. Said, go on, have a good time. Enjoy yourself, son. He did. Lost it all. Wound up wanting to eat pig slop. Now, I've been around a pig pen. And I hope and pray the Lord never lets me get so hungry I want to go eat the pig slop. Okay? But that's where he was. He was ready to eat the pig slop. He said, wait a minute. I can go to my daddy's house. He's always got plenty. But I'm going to go as a servant. He realized what he had done. And he came to the daddy and he said, I know I'm not worthy to be your son. That's what we've been talking about, isn't it? He wasn't proud anymore. I'm not worthy to be your son. God, none of us are worthy to be your children. But if you'll let me, I'll be your servant. That's the heart of the servant. That's how we need to come to the Lord. God, I'm not worthy. I'll never be worthy. But I'm willing to be a servant. Then you can worship. See, y'all thought I forgot where I started, didn't you? But then what did the father do? He said, nonsense. You're my son. You come to me to be a servant. I'm taking you in as a son. That's what God does to us. We come in and God, I'm not worthy. Let me just be a servant. Nonsense. Come on up here and be my kid. That shows his mercy. That shows his heart. That shows another reason that he is worthy not just of praise, but of worship because of who he is and because of the heart of love he has toward us. We need to learn to truly worship him. Too many people in the church world today are busy seeking men to praise them. Oh, he's the best preacher. She's the best singer. Okay, we have the best church. We have the best this. We have the best that. What happened to God? I want your will. I want to serve you. Even if you want to stick me in a little hole in the wall, I still want to serve you if that's where you want me to be. Because when I leave this world, I want to be your kid. I want to live and rule and reign with you. I want to spend eternity in your presence. And if I got to go through some hard times on this earth, it's going to be worth it to be your son. Don't be like the hypocrites. Jesus said in Matthew 15, starting at 7, "Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh to me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men." God's looking for people who are willing to humble themselves before him, worship him, serve him. Remember, we started out talking about that word worship carries with it the idea of serving. Even when we get to eternity, he's still on the throne. We're ruling with him, but he's still the one in charge. And if you don't learn to obey him here, hello, what makes you think you're going to get it right up there? If you're not willing and you rebel against God's authority in this world, you've proven you won't respect his authority in eternity. And there's a place prepared for people who don't want to accept his authority. I don't want to see anybody go there. I don't believe in a hellfire and brimstone scaring people to the altar kind of thing. I believe in a message like the one I presented today. Love him, serve him, worship him. He wants you to be his child. But you got to come with the heart of a servant, willing to worship him. Amen. Well, I feel like God has stopped, so that's where I'm going to. I hope that this has ministered to your hearts today and encouraged you. Love him, serve him, worship him with all of your heart. Amen. Wednesday night, back in the back, Lord's willing. We're going to keep doing our roundtables. I'm really enjoying them.